Welcome back to another episode of Consciously Clueless. I'm your host, Carly, and I'll be your guide on this journey from consciousness to cluelessness and back around again. Thanks for joining me for another Sunday solo episode. Whether you're getting ready for the work week or you're on your way to work now on Monday morning or whatever day this podcast has found you, I'm really glad you're here. Before we get going, on every solo episode, I have been reading a review of the week of the podcast from Apple Podcasts. But last week, I read a review from a student who has practiced yoga with me, and it was fun to hear your feedback and to hear more people getting interested in practicing yoga. So I thought I would read another review from a student, especially now, depending on where you are in the world, the weather is changing, you might need some more of that movement. And because everything's online now, the blessing is that people can practice from wherever. So the review says, practicing yoga online with Carly has been an amazing experience, especially during this time when everything feels so difficult out in the world. Knowing there's this space that exists every week that has been crafted with so much thought and care is really special and puts Carly's classes at the top of my online yoga list. From newbie to advanced yogi, I'm confident everyone will be able to find something of value in Carly's classes. Oh, I love that, because that is literally exactly the space I'm trying to create. So thank you for that review. So I thought all day about what I was going to talk about today on the solo episode, because there is so much going on in the world right now. I didn't know where to start or really what I wanted to cover. But then I kind of had that moment where I was like, I think I know how to approach all of the swirlings in my brain, which is impressive because there's a lot up there. But I've been talking more and more about manifesting, or just this idea of creating the life that you want and creating the life that we want for the world. And that led me to read The Secret, the book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. And that was a really important book to read on this journey if you're interested in these types of conversations of manifesting and law of attraction and all that. And recently they came out with, Hollywood, I guess, there was a movie released, a fictional movie, based on the principles of law of attraction from the book The Secret. And it's called The Secret, Dare to Dream. And this past weekend, I watched that movie, and it was good. It's got Katie Holmes and Josh Lucas or some other celebrity, and it was a sweet story, and it was a sweet movie. But what I took from it was just this reminder of the power of creating our own world. And yes, I know that the movie is a film from Hollywood, but what was fun is that it's based on these principles. And one of the characters in the movie said something along the lines of, if you don't know what you want, how do you know how to ask for it? Or something like that. And I kept thinking about that question and that idea after the movie was over. So if we can't really identify what we want, how do we know how to get it? So if you think about moments where you've just felt like really stuck in your life, and you're like, I'm not happy here, but maybe you can't come up with an alternative yet. Or I hate my job, but you don't know what else you want to do. Or I am not happy in this relationship, or you can name it. But you don't exactly know what you want instead or in place of, or to move on to. And I'm not saying that you need a detailed script for what's going to come in order to make change in your life. But I did think about this in this interesting way Because how do we know what to ask for and how do we know what to move to if we haven't spent time with ourselves, sitting down, thinking about what we want? So I think an easy one that many people relate to in different points in your life, I know I have, is thinking, this job doesn't feel right, or this is not fulfilling me. But when someone says, okay, what else are you going to do? That shrug your shoulders and say, well, I don't know. So how can you be working towards getting out of that job that you don't like if you really haven't given it the time to think, what would fill my cup? What would make me so happy to be doing? What is the alternative that would make me smile more often? What would that look like? We have to give ourselves the space and the time to think about what we want, because then we know how to work towards it. Then we know how to ask. And some of you might see where I'm going here, but I started thinking of that idea on a larger scale as well. So I have worked to think about, what do I want for the world? What do I want for humanity? What do I want for planet Earth? Because if I just say, there's too much garbage everywhere, we need to be more sustainable, and then someone says, okay, how are you going to do that? And I say, I don't know. I'm not working towards that. I'm not committing to that idea. I'm just bitching. Which is okay if that's all you want, or if that's all you need in that moment. But what if I say things need to be more just? Things are unfair. And someone says, okay, how do we make it more just? How do we make it more fair? And I say, I don't know. Then what am I really doing? I'm not really putting any thoughts out there that show I'm committed to that idea. I'm just pointing out the obvious, that things are not working and that things are wrong. And we know that. The fact that many people in the United States this week exhaled for the first time in 4 years after this current election, and bringing that up might alienate some people, and it'll also date this episode, but I haven't been quiet about the things I believe in before, so why start now? But the fact that so many specifically marginalized communities and people of color and the LGBT community and so many others exhaled for the first time in 4 years should show you, especially if you're someone with privilege, that you've not been imagining what the world could be like enough. Or maybe you haven't acknowledged that it needed to be better at all. But we have to imagine that it could be better first. Like, that's where everything starts, is in the imagination, is in that thought process of thinking, okay, things could be better. But how? How could they be better? What does that look like? This question works on all levels. Whether it's just you talking about your shitty job and what you want as an alternative, or whether it's in your relationship, something's not right. Okay, what do we do? Well, I don't know. Or it's the world. It's the entire world. You have to be able, we have to be able to imagine an alternative when we think of a problem. We have to be able to know what we're asking for and be really clear on it. And that doesn't mean that that won't shift and change as we gather more information, or as we move through the world, as we grow and change. But we have to start somewhere. It's not enough to say, I don't know. Well, then how do we know? How do we know what we're asking for if we don't even really know what we want? How do we know? What sense of movement, what are you moving towards? What goal are you going towards? If you say, I don't feel good, I'm not healthy, I don't feel good physically or mentally, I need to make a change. You hear that a lot, I need to make a change. Okay, what are you going to do? Well, I don't know. And you don't have to know. I'm not saying that you will magically have all the answers, but if you don't know, then you should try and figure it out, whether that's with yourself and getting quiet in that deep sense of knowing, or maybe that's with other people. That's okay too. I don't know how the world could be more fair, so I'm going to team up with others who want to do that work too, so we can figure it out. But don't get stuck in just saying, I don't know. Because that's how time passes with nothing changing and you just still being unhappy. That's how nothing changes in time passing and everything just stays as it is. And you stay unhappy and unfulfilled. So if you're going to ask for change, if you're going to ask for something different, if you're going to desire movement in your life or in the life of your relationships or in the world, you have to know what you want, because that will dictate your next moves and your plan of action. It will give you a place to feel like you're working towards a goal instead of just spinning and thinking everything is shitty and I don't know what to do about it. When we say I don't know, we often do have some semblance of an idea. We are either too afraid to say it, we don't want to speak it into existence, we think it's wrong, we don't want others to judge us, or we're second guessing ourselves, but we often know a little more than we let on when we say, I don't know. You probably do know a little bit, or you have some idea. So go with that. Cling to any little hint that you have when you think about what you want. If you are into any mindfulness practices, or even just as you're falling asleep maybe tonight, I'll keep going with this job example, but if that resonates with you, and you're like, yeah, that is me, that is what I need, is a new field of study, or I need a new job, or I need a new way to move through the world and make a difference that fulfills me more. Okay, what does that look like? And don't hold back. Like, don't get in your head and think, well, that wouldn't work, and then you stop it. Just imagine as you're falling asleep tonight, if there were no obstacles, nothing to jump over, no hoops to go through, just like let your imagination go wild. What would it look like? What of that can you make true? What of that vision you could actually work on? Because usually you can pull something out of it and think, okay, here's my starting point. Imagine the world in that way too. Okay, that gives you a starting point. So that's what I want to focus on as this somehow longest week of 2020 comes to an end. This big exhale. We have to know what we want, or we don't know how to ask for it. We have to know what we want, or we do not know how to ask for it and move forward. And what we all need on an individual level, on an interpersonal level, and on a global level is to move forward in a way that is in harmony with our true selves. Because if everyone's moving in harmony with their true selves, then the whole world is literally moving in harmony. And I imagine that that is possible. I truly do. And I hope that you all do too. Thanks for listening to another episode of Consciously Clueless. If you are enjoying this podcast, hit subscribe wherever you're listening. If you want to help me get this into the ears of more listeners, share it with a friend, text it to a family member, post on social media, and tag me. Anything you can do to help me out, I would greatly appreciate. And if you want to be read on air as a review of the week, head over to Apple Podcasts real quick. It just takes a minute. Leave a review and you could be read on air, and I would so appreciate it. Until next time.